could very well be choosing violence in this vlog, which, let me go on the record and say from the very beginning, it's not my intentions at all. I was strolling through Libby looking for recommendations for audiobooks, and I discovered that all of Ali Hazelwood's books, the 2 full-length romance novels and the novellas, were available to check out, which I thought was clearly a sign that I have to check them out and listen to them now because they're all available. Like, that's the universe telling me that it's a happy holiday season and that I should read these books. So I had literally no intentions on reading from this author at all. I wouldn't say that she was on an anti-TBR, but when The Love Hypothesis was first coming out, or even before it even came out, I was watching some reviews where individuals had gotten early release copies of it and they loved it, and then the people who picked it up initially when it first dropped absolutely loved it. But then there was this phenomenon where it blew the hell up and everyone was reading it, and then that is when I started to see the hate reviews. And so I just kind of put that book in the box of like, if you love this particular type of romance, then you would love this book, and if you only pick this up for the hype, and it's not usually your usual genre, then it might just really end in a hate read. I don't know enough about it to know if it would be my usual genre. I still don't even have a usual genre of romance. I'm just starting to get my feet wet with the romance books. I know what I like, I know what I don't like, but I definitely don't have like a niche or an area where I absolutely know I'm gonna love a book. Like right now, when I pick up a romance book, it is still a coin toss. Even if it's an author that I've read from before, even if it's a trope that I've read from before, it's a coin toss, 50-50 if I'm gonna like it or not. I could very well be choosing violence, but I don't know. Ideally, I think I checked out 3 novellas and 2 novels, so like, ideally, I would like at least 2 of them. Ideally. But if I end up not liking any of them, this will quickly become a ranting video, which I'm also here for. But as it stands, I don't have an opinion either way it goes. I don't know the plot of any of these stories except for The Love Hypothesis. I know that we're dealing with a female character in STEM, and I think she has to fake date a professor for her reputation and his reputation, but he's a little bit of an asshole, and they end up falling in love. I didn't even know until I was on Libby that she released novellas. That was new to me. So I'm going into this, I would say pretty blind. I would say objective and not too biased. And I'm really hoping that she gives me something to work with, and that I can come back and update you guys and say that I've enjoyed something. But if not, almost immediately when I started listening to Stuck With You, I wanted to DNF. It was awful. It was awful. It was very much giving in the first 20 minutes that I would have DNF'd that book if it wasn't a novella. And then I thought that maybe I was judging it too harshly. And so I kept listening, and literally every 10 minutes I wanted to come to this vlog and say, what the fuck? I wanted to try to finish the book before I came back to this vlog, but one thing just kept happening after another, and I couldn't take it anymore. What? These characters feel like caricatures of characters. Like, Sadie is the most high-strung, flustered, nervous energy damsel in distress I've ever read in a book. Like, she is a dumping pot for just a damsel in distress trope, and I dislike that greatly. Like, there's nothing that makes me more turned off in a romance book or in a book period when I have this incredibly, like, almost incompetent female character. Because why show me that person today. Where is she? How many women are still are still existing in the world, behaving like this. Where are they? Where are they? And then to top it off, because we're supposed to believe that she's an engineer, she's very problematic, right? Like, she said so many offensive things to this man back to back, and like a little giggle after, but we're gonna get to that later. But like, she's a very superstitious scientist, engineer, and then randomly she'll start spouting STEM related facts, and there's a huge disconnect because, girl, you were just literally crying about to break down because the bakery that you don't even like was out of croissants that you don't even like and you don't even want to eat, but you are convinced that because on the day that you got the biggest account profile of your career that you ordered that nasty ass croissant, that now you have to waste your money every time before a big client meeting because that croissant is somehow linked to your success. Not the fact that you have a fucking PhD and you're 27. You have a PhD at 27. You did nothing to earn that big client in that meeting because the fucking croissant gave the presentation. The croissant that you did not even like. And it's her sitting here having a breakdown in this fucking bakery over a croissant. You're a professional. I'm probably like almost an hour and a half into the book, and she has insulted this man no less than like 8 or 9 times, and he's just taking it in stride. Like, I did not expect for this book to be a contender on my worst of the year, but by golly, it is there. It is now officially there. I'm gonna drag this book to hell. I just know it. We have 2 different timelines, right? We're like in the present where they're stuck on an elevator together, and they're gonna be in this very small, cramped elevator for hours on end before someone comes to even think to check on them, with a main character that just word vomits stupid shit out of her mouth every time she opens it, literally. And so I'm gonna be in this elevator watching her continue to offend this man because she can't seem to help herself. And then in the second timeline, we're in the past, about I guess 3 weeks ago, when they had just first met and they had a little fling going on and they were dating, but now they haven't spoken to each other in a while because apparently he left some messages on her phone and she like blocked him and like didn't respond. We don't really know what the reasons for those messages are or like what they said. There is absolutely no steam, no romance. The paper is flaccid. There's nothing. There's not a whiff of smoke coming from these 2 characters at all. Like, this is a hate crime. I don't know what Eric did as a character to upset Ali Hazelwood, but pairing him with this walking catastrophe, hate crime. It's a hate crime. Okay, I have finished the remaining hour of Stuck With You. 1 star. That was 1 star. I still feel like those were not real characters. It felt very much like a writing exercise. Eric was, I'm convinced, our cardboard cutout of a man. Like, I don't think he was a real character. Like, it felt very much like a writing exercise or like a draft that needed to be fleshed out more, but wasn't. I think I'm going to take a break from the novellas at this point because I'm afraid that they're all going to be writing exercises and that's not going to be a fun time for me. So I'm going to move to Love Hypothesis, which is a full-length novel. It is the one that got the most hype, and my guess, the most beloved by her so far. And so hopefully that one kind of redeems this whole vlog for me because this was not a fun time. Like, those 3 hours of my life, I will never get back. I will never get them back. I just reached 50% into the Love Hypothesis. This was a complete turnaround from the novella that I read before. This one had an editor, it had beta readers, it had multiple revisions before the final draft, and I'm proud. Okay, because the first one was just such a fiasco that I was a little nervous going into this one. Is it the best romance ever? No, but I don't have any complaints, and that could be just because I'm so relieved that all of the hype around her writing did not come down to the first book that I read. I feel like I like the main character. He's pretty okay. I don't see much like development, or I don't see much of an attempt to flesh out his character. But for right now, we only have the way that he interacts with our main character Olive, and then the way he is perceived and the way he interacts with other people, and that doesn't seem to be a misunderstanding. Like, his perception, or the perception that people have of him, seems to be like pretty comprehensive to say the least, and I think that he knows that and he's okay with it, and he doesn't go out of his way to change it. As far as Olive goes, she's more fleshed out than the first character. I don't have an opinion either way it goes. Where I am right now, the book feels like a 3-star, which I'm just gonna call a win because we are coming off of a 1-star. And now I'm even more nervous because are all of the novellas just writing drafts that were sitting on her computer that she just kind of blew the dust off of and published? Because that would be a waste of my time. Even if they are 2 hours or an hour and a half long, it just doesn't seem worth the read. So I definitely will be reading Love on the Brain for sure, which is the second full-length novel. And I will read one of the 2 remaining novellas that we have in this vlog. But if that one goes immediately south as quickly as the first one did, then I'm gonna stop while I'm ahead, because then it just seems like my perception on her novellas will not. Just finished The Love Hypothesis. I ended up rating the book 3.5 out of 5 stars. It was, again, like I mentioned earlier, so much better than the novella that I read. This one was thorough. I think one of the strongest components to this book for me was the pacing. It wasn't a long book, but I think the author did a really good job pacing out the time frame in which our characters fell in love. The way that the book is set up, it could very easily have become an insta-love situation, which is something that I would not have enjoyed as much. Insta-love is just not, for me, it's not something that I usually like in books. And so I thought that within the 300 pages, it wasn't drawn out too much, but it also wasn't insta-love, which is something that I enjoyed. I enjoyed the overall themes of like women in STEM, and I could see how people would give this 5 stars, call it their favorite romance. There's a lot to talk about here. There's a lot to dissect here. And I feel like it had a lot of substance in the book. So more than a 5-star for me, but I could see why people love it. My gripes that like I would complain about the book really isn't worth mentioning. It's more of just like some logistical things, some of the logic around the things that happen in the plot. I feel like it was a little too convenient and unrealistic, but it is what it is. I'm nervous now to try the second novella that I'm going to read in this vlog. Typically, I would want to go to Goodreads and look at the ratings for the 2 novellas and just pick the one that has the higher rating, but I don't really trust Goodreads on this situation because this is such a popular author that I feel like the ratings for highly hyped authors do not always reflect the writing skill or the quality of the book. So we're going into the dark again for our second novella. It's 8:30 in the morning. I'll probably be back to check in with you guys around like 10. I finished Under One Roof. I gave that 1.5 out of 5 stars. I'm definitely done with the novellas. They feel, again, like a writing exercise. I feel like they should have been left in the draft. I'm seeing a lot of repetitious things that are happening across the 3 books that I've read so far. Ali Hazelwood seems to have this formula for writing a story that is incredibly obvious, that does not work, but the structure in which these stories develop have definitely something that they all share in common. We have quirky, hard to like main characters. We're stuck in their head for the entirety of the book. I don't think that every romance book should have a dual POV, but I do think that Hazelwood's books suffer tremendously by not having a dual POV because she does not write likable characters. They are caricatures of a character. They're quirky, or they're supposed to be quirky, damsel in distress. They are, to me, very self-absorbed, and it gets frustrating as a reader for them to literally deny what they're seeing with their own eyes, denying the obvious. Like, these are supposed to be scientists, right? These are supposed to be women that take evidence that they see, and somehow they just convince themselves that what they're seeing is not what they're seeing, and it gets very frustrating. Instead of the female characters in this book constantly denying their attraction or the male character's attraction to them, I would have much rather like them spew in their nervous energy of, okay, where do we go from here? Because I like him, I'm sending all these signals, he clearly is sending these signals back, he might be interested in me, so like, who's gonna make the first move? I would have liked to see that in at least one of these books. I also feel like all of her male characters, she does them a disservice by not fleshing them out. They are all cardboard cutouts. You could literally take the male character from each story and replace them because they have the same characteristics. She seems to have this fetish for big, hulky men and very teeny tiny women, and the sex scenes go entirely like that. We get this extended dialogue around how this man is trying to fit himself in such a tiny place, and the girl saying, oh my god, it's not gonna fit, and then being squeezed or like stretched open. That is how the sex scene has went in all 3 romance stories that I've read so far, and I don't have an aversion to it. I really don't care, but to see that in every single story is a bit of a disappointment. I feel like even without all of my gripes, Ali Hazelwood is just not an author that I could call a favorite or call like a auto-buy author, because I feel like once you've read one of her stories, you've definitely read them all. They don't change very much, and when you have an author that is releasing books back to back like Ali Hazelwood is, you would want to purchase her books because of course you've read something from her before and you loved it, but you also want to see something different when you go into it. And I feel like Emily Henry is an author that comes to mind that has managed to do that in a way that I'm not seeing from Hazelwood. And I don't mean to compare them, but at least I know, like, when I pick up Beach Read or Book Lovers or People We Meet on Vacation, those stories are very different. Now, of course, there's still writing mechanics or like a formula, but it's a lot less obvious than we are experiencing with these books. I feel like her releasing the novellas was more of a cash grab and more of like, oh, I have like this huge fan base and people are gonna buy it, people are gonna read it, but I don't think that it's doing much to solidify her fan base. I don't think it's doing much to solidify her writing skills. I actually feel like if she had just went with releasing the 3 books 3 years in a row, it would have been better. So I'm anticipating that when I read Love on the Brain, it's going to be much more fleshed out, but I also still feel like I'm going to see a lot of the same similarities that I've seen before. I really wish that she would just take the time to invest in her male characters, even if we weren't going to get their POV. I do think that they deserve to be a full character. Right now, she seems to only expand upon her male characters so that they can fit into this mold of the female that we're following, and they're very annoying. They're honestly very annoying. So it's time to read Love on the Brain. I don't think I'm going to be reading the last novella because no matter how short they are, they seem to be a waste of my time at this point. So I'm looking forward to finishing this vlog, for it being over with. I know that there is a book that's set to come out next year. I don't foresee me reading it, but we'll see how Love on the Brain goes. I'm officially 50% through Love on the Brain, and it has been a time. I took a break between finishing the last book and starting this one just because I felt like these books, the writing style and the plot and the characters were just so similar to one another that it was impacting my ability to read the book objectively. So there has been a bit of a gap in this reading vlog, but it did not do much for my reading opinions when I started this book, because once again, we're back to a quirky, dramatic female main character that is in her head, self-absorbed about everything that's going on around her, and we have the male character that again is interchangeable with any other book that I've read from her so far. And of course, he's big and tall and muscular and built like a Victorian house and can bench lift the entire science department with one arm. Yeah, all of that is exactly the same. I've said it before, I'm gonna say it again. I feel like if you've read one of her books, you have read them all. There is no diversity or versatility in the writing by this author at all. And so my enjoyment of reading these books is going down. Like, it was never really high. Let me just say that. It was not high to begin with, but yeah, there's no fun in it when all of the books are almost identical to one another. Now, with that being said, I do think that there was some examples of growth, however small or minimal they were, but there are examples of growth. There is an attempt to flesh out our main character, to build out the world around her, to give her aspects of her personality and of her life that is not centered around the main character's love interest or their job. So there are other components being built into her character's life that is an appreciation, I guess, for me to see, because we haven't seen that in any of the other stories. There is a small attempt to kind of humanize and give more realistic characteristics to our male love interest, but still feels very cardboard cut out. There's just so much room for opportunity and growth, I feel, with Ali Hazelwood's writing, and with the hype that she has and the book deals that she's getting, it feels like she's gonna have that opportunity to keep growing as a writer, keep growing as an author, and to build more versatile love stories. But for where we stand right now, that's just something that is severely lacking. This one is slightly ahead of The Love Hypothesis, and so it is the better book that she's been able to pull out of her magic hat so far. Is it good? No. Is it good for her? I guess. I don't know. Like, if I had to rank them in order of like tiers, Love of the Brain would come out higher than the other books that I've read in this vlog, but I still feel like there are many areas of improvement within the story. There are so many other romance authors and books that you could read that is more worthy of your time. And the only thing that I can attribute to all of the hype and privilege that she's gotten has been because she writes about women in STEM. Like, are these dynamic women, well-rounded women? No. They are caricatures of women, I feel. It's very weird because her books are supposed to be a commentary on how women are treated in STEM, but all of her female main characters are walking prejudices. Like, they fit into every single stereotype for why women don't get the respect that they deserve in STEM, but the books are supposed to be a commentary on why women deserve to get respect in the STEM field. And I don't even want to dive into that right now and talk about what that means, but she does put commentary on how women are treated in the science or technology or engineering fields, but her characters, as they stand, don't do much to combat that perception of women. And so I can't even say that this is a great example of an allegory for these types of things, but it is making me think that because she is so intimate in her knowledge with being a woman in a STEM field, she's able to write these books, whether they're good or not. She's able to make these commentaries, whether they're good or not, in a way that we haven't seen. So this is the first time we've had a mainstream STEM fiction romance book centered around a woman. By being the first to do that, or by breaking grounds in this area, I think that she has she's been awarded a lot of privilege that I don't think is deserved. I think that all of these books that I've read are mediocre. even The Love Hypothesis, even though I said earlier that I can understand why you love it, I can understand why you have enjoyed it, it is still a very mediocre romance novel. And I just cannot reconcile Ali Hazelwood being someone's favorite author. I can see you enjoying her books. One of them, whichever one you happen to pick up first, you might enjoy. I can see you enjoying two of them, or maybe even enjoying her. But I don't understand how she could be someone's favorite author unless you haven't read any other romances out there. Like, unless you've never read from anyone else, I don't see how she can be your top two, but not two romance author. And that's just my honest opinion. This has been a very interesting journey so far. I will come back with my final thoughts, but I feel like I've shared my perception throughout this entire vlog, and now, you know, let's just go finish. Let's go wrap. So we've officially reached the end of this vlog of me kind of chasing the hype of Ali Hazelwood. Ultimately, I rated this book 3 stars, 3.5 stars out of 5. So it had the same rating as The Love Hypothesis, but if I had to pick a preference, I would say this one. There's so many things about the book that could have worked for me, but just turned out to be very cliche and corny, especially towards the end of the book. The enjoyment went downhill. I didn't really care for this like mystery villain dialogue that we got from one character in the story. So yeah, it was just, this was a mix of like bittersweet emotions as I was reading the book. I think that one of the biggest gripes that I've had throughout this vlog is, one, her main characters having this like complete denial of what is right in front of their eyes. And I remember I kind of mentioned stating that I would have preferred for them to just lean into the romance and see where it could go and just like kind of exist within that sphere of understanding. And this book had a weird balance of our main characters got together earlier than I've seen in any other story, but there was still this huge sense of like deniability from our main character. And so I had to take my preference with the caveat of still having that experience. Another big gripe was her just failing to flesh out her male characters in a way that they were entire people. I do think that that's something that she salvaged in this book. Levi is the only male character that did not feel like a cardboard cutout throughout the entire book. We got to see so many components about his life. I do think that she kind of forced herself to do that because it was important to understand him and his actions and the way that he treated B earlier, and like when they first met. In order for that to make sense, we had to dive deeper into who Levi was beneath the surface. So that's something that she managed to accomplish within this book. There was a huge amount of like miscommunication that was happening in the beginning, and the angst and just the miscommunication trope was like so high, like so intense, that I wanted to DNF the book. But again, one of the strongest things that I feel like she does well in her books is the pacing, and she kind of rectified that miscommunication, but you still see small instances of miscommunication throughout the entire story. So this book felt a bit like a Nutty Professor kind of moment, where you can see the growth in her writing and you can see the growth in her storytelling, and she's trying to like break out of this parameter, but also just the parameter that she has and the comfort zone that she has. It was a bit like morphing back and forth, where I just wanted to be like, girl, just let go of the things that you've been holding on to that does not work for the readers. I feel like we just kept teetering back and forth between like old problematic ways and like new prosperous actions. I still think that all of the books were mediocre. Like, that's really just my honest opinion. I think that at this point I would wait one, maybe even two more releases from Ali Hazelwood before I try another book to see if we can get something higher than a 3.5, because with Love Hypothesis and Love on the Brain honestly being the best that I've seen her do, they still weren't all that great. So I'm going to give us a break. I'm going to give me a break from her, and hopefully when I revisit a story, if I even revisit a story from her, it is better than what I experienced in this vlog. I am putting a bit of a poll in this video, so if you've made it to the end of this video, I want you to comment down an author that you'd like me to follow the hype for next. Right now, I don't know, I have a hankering for testing out Nora Roberts because I feel like she is an incredibly popular and hyped author, but for some reason I do feel like her books are warranted, like the love that she gets for her books are warranted. So that is one potential author that I'm thinking of doing a vlog similar to this, where I'll just read about 3, maybe even 4 books by Nora Roberts and see if it's for me. I tend to stay away from very hyped romance books, but now's your chance to pick my TBR. Let me know if you're down for me to read some Nora Roberts, or if you have somebody else in mind. Thank you guys. I will see you in my next video.